Hi guys, Rich from Trackspark here. Hope you're all well and had a good start to the summer. Hope you enjoyed the World Cup too. I thought it was an amazing World Cup. So well done France, well done England too. Um, does anyone remember the Brazil music, the World Cup music from 4 years ago? Oh yeah, well that was me. So there you go. But anyway, on to today. I wanted to talk to you today about sort of EQing and the different types of EQ that I use and how I use them in conjunction with each other. So you may have heard of it before, surgical or clinical EQ, and that's one of them, and character EQ is the other. So two different types of EQ used for sort of different. I use them for different things, and also a bit of a combination of the two as well. So what I mean by surgical or clinical EQ is something like this. So one of these sort of parametric looking EQs. Also, let's have a look. Let's see if we can find another one. So yeah, like this. So something where you can sort of look at the frequency spectrum and use it, pinpoint certain frequencies and use it a little bit more sort of surgically or clinically, just to clean up your instrument or sound. And then the a character EQ I get is something more like one of these sort of analog. Let's have a look for another one too. So yeah, one of these. So or one of these. So sort of like an analog model of some old analog sort of hardware, and these give a little bit more sort of character specific to the EQ itself, this plugin itself. So the developers will try and emulate, especially with sort of this Neve 1073, they'll try and emulate all of the electronics and circuitry and gizmos and gadgets behind the front panel to what the original sounded like. So it's got a very distinct sort of sound rather than just one of those surgical EQs, parametric EQs. So that's the sort of the difference, the general difference between the two. So I'll just play you the track quickly, just so we know what we're dealing with, and then we'll get into it, and I'll show you quickly, hopefully quickly, on how I've used them. So here we go. So there you go, bit of a cool sort of rock track that I've been working on. Right, so so how I've used. Let's start with the clinicals, shall we, or surgical, or whatever you want to call it. So how I've used it. You probably saw a second ago. A lot of it. High pass filters, low pass filters. If we go down, these are all guitar parts here, but I'll use it on a lot of them. Even on this bass sort of group here, there's a bit of a high pass and like a shelf here. So if we go through, there we go. So high pass, and a bit of a low high pass sort of thing. And I'm using this just to clean out any sort of unwanted frequencies. So if we were to let's go back to this one. So if we were to listen to this in solo, and I'm going to take off this, and put it back on again. I'm actually EQing the sound there to alter it, but there was a lot of sort of low frequencies that we're just going to add up and build up and through all of these guitar parts, and just cause my mix to get muddy and sound horrible. And a lot of people will say, don't just go straight for the high pass or don't go straight for the low pass because you're losing all the balls out of the guitar or out of the sound. But if you're doing it for a reason, then that's okay. I'm using my eyes and my ears to figure out what I want. So, don't be afraid to high pass or low pass just because people are telling you, not to do it nowadays. If there's a reason for doing it, then that's fine in my eyes and ears. Another good sort of reason, a way of sort of using this clinical EQ is, let's see if I can find it. So I saw it a second ago. Here we go. So for notching out any, like I said, cleaning up, repairing your sound. So notching out any unwanted, horrible sort of tones or resonances that are appearing. So if we look at this sort of number 3 here, it looks obviously very particular. So let's solo this. Let's find this guitar part. Let's find there we go. And play it. Let's actually take number 3 out, sorry. So particularly in those last two notes there's a horrible frequency poking through, and we can see it spiking just there as well. So I've just searched through the frequency spectrum, found it, and just pulled it down. So now it's gone, and the tone, I think the tone of the actual guitar there sounds a little nicer. There's too much sort of presence, especially on that little bit that I've put in there, that horrible little sound. So that's cleaned it up. So that's obviously another use. Now, how I'm using the character EQ, let's go back to this one again. This sort of main guitar part which is centered. So let's have a look. I've got this VEQ on it. And again, I'm just using it I've got a high pass filter here at 150. And I'm boosting it at 820. And I'm giving it a bit more at 10 kilohertz as well. So it's giving it a bit more bite and a bit more presence, and also cleaning it up. So let's just listen to it without. Let's find the riff bit. There we go. And if we're looking on the spectrum here, we can see there's a lot of sort of low-end mud in there as well. So I'm just doubling up on this high pass. So let's listen to it with. So we can hear that all of that sort of low-end muddiness and horribleness is now gone, because I've got another. I like to double up on my high-pass filters because I find things sort of still creep through. You don't have to use. By the way, you don't have to use these to sort of double up on these sort of clinical EQs. They do tend to have quite nice high-pass and low-pass filters, but you could also use. I like to double up on my. Let's just quickly show you. Double up on my high-pass filters, just even with two sort of surgical or clinicals at different points. Even something like this. This is quite a nice one by Waves. You can sort of get the curve really nice and steep by stacking them. But if we were to take it off, we can see there I've got a high pass on there, and it's just sort of if I just put this on, just cleaning it up a tiny bit there, so it's stopping all of those accumulative muddy frequencies adding up and being a problem. So it's not made much difference to the sound, certainly not in the mix, in the full mix, but I'm just tidying things up and keeping it from causing any problems. So but let's go back to this quickly. Okay, right, so let's get my VEQ up. So I've doubled up on my high pass there again, so it's cleaned it up, and like I said, I've boosted it at these 2 points, just to give it a bit more presence and a bit more bite in the mix. So again, turn it off. We can hear that it's cleaned up and it's got a lot more bite. Now, another thing you sort of, I guess, got to be vigilant of is your output. Now, that was clearly a lot louder than without it on. So you just got to make sure, change your output so that your output levels are the same, so you can check what changes you've made to that signal. So let's just have a listen. So I've without. Again there, so I've changed the output volume so that I can hear that I've cleaned up the bottom end and it's got a bit more bite and a bit more presence anyway. It sounds a bit thinner, but it sounds a lot, again, cleaner to me. And because there's a lot of guitars, there's some meaty guitars pan left and right, and a really meaty bass sort of in here, I'm okay with losing a bit of that sort of low end body. So let's just have a listen in the mix. Sorry, I've taken it off. This is without. Just hear it poking through with that little bit more sort of presence, and I know, like I said, I've cleaned it up, but I'm going to boost it a bit anyway. So I know that it's cutting through in those certain frequencies that I want. And also, I guess finally, look, you can see here that I've used this parametric EQ here, so my surgical EQ, I've got quite a generous boost here. I like to use them in combination with each other because I can obviously sweep the spectrum and see again where I'm using my eyes and my ears to sort of find out where I think that particular signal's missing something, that particular guitar or that instrument is missing something. So let's listen to it, and then I can just boost it in front of me again. So I'm using the surgical for a reason, the character for a reason, and then I'm just sort of tweaking it and using them both, sort of a bit of a crossover here as well. Okay, so let's listen to it without. Making it a little bit sort of nasally, but it's helping it, if we listen to it in the mix, cut through more. So there you go. That's what I'm using it for. Again, like I say, I do use them for a particular reason, but that you can obviously see again that there's a bit of crossover happening. And also don't be. I like to put them on my group channels as well. So let's just quickly look at this. So if I've got my guitars group here, so let's solo all my guitars. I've got one of these really nice Neve 1073s on here. On all of my guitars. So I've got a high pass at 50 hertz, just to make sure nothing horrible is creeping through at those really low frequencies. That's going to clash with, you know, the kick drum or the bass, etc. I'm giving him a bit more balls at 220, and then a bit more sort of, I like to call it, bite at 3.2 kilohertz. So let's listen without, and let's put it on. Now again, there's more volume there, which obviously helps things sound better anyway, but you can also hear that those certain sort of boosts that I've given it are really helping with the actual sound of all the guitars as well. Because if we were to sort of take it off, let's play it in and out the mix, in the mix without the EQ. Sorry. Now put it on. Sounding much better. Now we could just boost. You could say, oh right, well let's just boost the. It's just a volume thing. Well, let's try boosting the volume without the EQ. It's not really, I mean, yes, it's sounding a bit better, but it's not really having the same effect or the same bite as the EQ. So a much more bite and much more presence, and sounding loads better, to be honest, than just a level boost. So there you go. That is how I use the two different types of EQ together, and like I said, a bit of a crossover, and on my group. So I hope that was useful, guys, and I'll see you next month. Cheers, bye.